Hello. I've had a renewed interest in pyramids. In looking on the web, I ran into this pattern, which is a replica of the Khufu pyramid of Giza. And since it was a pattern in one piece, I thought that it would be interesting to extend these lines out and make a larger pyramid from this pattern. So I decided to do this with foam board, and I tried experimenting with one of the just plain white foam sheets, which worked quite well. So I will put the URL for this pattern in the description. Now with this pattern, there are 4 triangles here that will form the shape of the pyramid. Now this pyramid does have an angle of slope of 51.82729. It's based on the golden triangle. So what you need to get this done are a couple of your favorite rulers or straight edges. And I have one that is in inches, but also in millimeters. The millimeter one worked best for me in this case. You also need a really sharp, because the foam board and the cardboard will definitely dull that blade. A bottle opener and a regular kitchen knife, a straight edge of some kind that's a little bit longer, and some Scotch tape. This is a 20 by 30 inch piece of foam board, which is about 3/8 of an inch thick. So the first thing to do, you need to cut out this pattern. Take the straight edge, line it up. Good idea, I think, to leave the black lines on the pyramid shape in place so that you can kind of gauge where the ends are. Then on this open side, you just cut right across. And we can set this aside, and here's the pattern. So now you just need to find the center of the board. Since it's 20 inches, I'm just going to put a mark at 10. And then draw a line down the center. Now what we want to do is take one side of these 2 triangles, and it'll be lined up on the center line along with this point. So the other tool you need is a push pin. What I found is that if you measure 280 millimeters, just put a push pin at that point, and then put a pinpoint right at the apex of where all the triangles meet. Put the pin through the hole, and also through the hole that's in the foam board. And then move this around so it lines up with the center line. Once you have that lined up, you want to tape it down so that it stays in position. And just put the pieces of tape on the center lines of the pyramids. Now you can remove the push pin, and then all we want to do is extend the lines of the sides of the triangles as accurately as you can. Now that all the lines are extended, we want to remove the pattern and set that aside. Now we need to extend our lines to the center point. So I think it's easier just to put this on the center point, and then it should line up right on the money with those lines. I think it's easier to use the push pin to mark the distances of the sides of the triangles. This one is already 280. So now we want to measure 280 on each of the triangle side. Have to adjust the old eyeballs here. And then just put a little pinpoint in there. Okay, so now just connect those lines. And this one, of course, goes right to the edge. On one of these sides, and I'm going to choose this side, you need to come out at the top with a kind of shallow angle. Make it come out about a couple of inches. If you measure out the 280 millimeters here and put a mark, and then line that mark up with the end point on this triangle and go out a couple of inches here, and then draw a line along here. This is going to be a tab for gluing to this side to hold the pyramid together. So the next task is to cut out the outline from the foam board. When you do this, you want to make a shallow cut at the beginning so that you have a good line to go in deeper with. And then about the 3rd time, you can go all the way through. on these final cuts, it's better to go from the center out. So now we have the pattern. These grooves, to be effective, need to be close to 1/8 of an inch to be able to wrap this around to 90 degrees. I'm going to mark a little bit outside that line, go down a little bit into the foam, and do another one just outside the line to give you that 1/8 of an inch. So now to begin, this is where it gets a little tricky. You want to go down with something that will allow you to pull out the foam, without going through the covering on the other side. If you have a spoon or something that's about 1/8 of an inch wide, it actually works pretty good to remove the foam without cutting through the outside layer. It does take a little bit of work, but you can see this is starting to come up. But now, really need to try to make a 45-degree groove in the edges of this so that when you fold it, it'll come together as a corner. I found this works pretty good as a starting point. And you can kind of test as you go up. And then you may have to clean out the channel. I think the most important thing is to be sure you don't have any little pieces of foam in the channel. Because if you do, it will cause the outside member to pop. Take the spoon or something that feels comfortable and push this down just a little bit more. The foam has a tendency to pop back up. Okay, that folded up real good. So now, really need to do this to all these other 3 sides. So those have all definitely folded to 90 without breaking the outsides. So for the next phase, this is a little trickier because you need to make a 45-degree angle along here. And you also need to lift this up off the foam and then make a 45-degree angle on the other side that goes out so that these 2 pieces can meet. Make a real narrow cut along here. In hindsight, I should have made this cut at the beginning. Just making a little groove like the other channels so that these 2 pieces can fit together. This is a little tricky. So we need to come down here and just put the knife right on the edge of the paper. It's easy to cut the paper, so you have to be careful. You want to push this down in there. Once you get it started, it pulls along pretty easily. So we're just separating the paper from the foam. Then we need to cut this off without cutting off the tab, of course. Now the real difficulty on this side is to put kind of a 45-degree angle on this so that it can come together with the rest of the pieces. So you can see that that is pretty good, but this little area of foam is keeping these 2 edges apart. So we definitely need to take some of the foam out of there. Also try to get any foam off of this so that it lays down flat. Okay, that's fitting together pretty well. So now the next challenge is to hook all this together. And I found that this Power Glad by Loctite for molding, it grabs instantly and it dries fast. Loctite cleans up with water, so it's good to have some damp pieces of paper towel and also a couple of dry ones. But I'm also going to squeeze a little bit right in here to fill the gap between the 2 final pieces, and that should also help join those together. There's some working time with this, but once it grabs really good. If you want this off your fingers, you have to take it off right away, because once it's on there, it'll stay on for, a day or so. So now we're going to put this together. So I'm smoothing this down, and then we need to double check this. Be sure these pieces will go together. Now these are fitting together pretty good, so I'm just going to take some Scotch tape and hold these in place. These edges turned out really well. I don't see a break on any of these edges. If you notice any little glue spots, you can wipe those off now. So now I've taken away the cardboard so I have a flatter surface to set this on. This is sitting pretty square right here. I'm just going to take a roll of duct tape, and that'll put a little weight on this and keep it flat on the table while everything dries. So here's the pyramid after sitting all night. It does change color as it turns. This seems to sit squarely on the table. So I have a line drawn as a reference point. What I'm going to do is tack down an edge of this packing tape, measure off the length needed, stretch it, center it as much as possible, and then tape it down so that it remains flat. And then I'm just going to cut right on the center line on both ends. So this is the sharp edge here. I'm just going to lay this down on the line. Need to lift up the edges that are going to fold. Now I can take this, fold it over, press it down real firm, cut along this edge. That really smoothed out that edge and you can't really tell it's there. And one can just use it as a regular pyramid, or I think you could use this as a pyramid hat. The inside corners came out pretty well, but it would take a little practice to be able to have these mesh together exactly. Here's the inside of the pyramid after painting it with a interior flat white latex paint. Thanks for watching. For more videos, please click the link below. If this video was helpful, please give it a like. Thanks.